I still can't get over the fact that the right and MAGA's nickname for RFK Jr. is the healthiest man in America. If you think I'm making that up, please go look it up. You will be, well, most likely unsurprised, but you will be nonetheless very disappointed when you see how much reverence they have for the supposed peak physical health that is RFK Jr., the man with a literal brainworm dead inside of his gray matter, existing within a cavity that was once made up of part of his brain that it ate and then died. The brainworm died inside of its food source. Clearly, there was not enough power within those brains for it to eat enough to survive. Like, it just couldn't get enough calories off of what it was eating. And if you want to know why it's just ridiculous to call this man the most healthy man in America, I will admit, he's pretty fit. I don't know how many of you guys have seen, but, like, RFK Jr. is pretty fit. However, he's almost certainly using, like, steroids or something to achieve that. I don't believe he's, like, natty fit as fuck. But in his, spare time, he does take Joe Rogan's advice, and he does cold plunges. Though, instead of using a nice little ice bath, he seems to choose to do cold plunges in sewer ditches. That is RFK with his grandkids, I believe, swimming in a sewer drainage ditch. I love how the kids are, like, cautious. Like, they're kind of, like, ankle deep in the water at most. And RFK Jr. is, like, beyond nipple deep. Like, he's crouched down and sideways so he can submerge as much of his skin and body in that water as possible. Hilariously, this is in my state. I believe RFK did this in Seattle. It was a very recent news that everyone was talking about. I just love this story because it's very, very much like the face of RFK's genuine medical knowledge. And then, of course, we've got the fact that RFK has facilitated the immense spreading of disease. We already talked a bit about this, but, it's just getting worse, so I don't feel like talking about it once is going to suffice. Ever since RFK has been in charge of Americans' health, there has been a rash of measles outbreaks. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, though, guys. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Even though doctors are slamming RFK Jr. for his handling of it, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Well, let's find out.
Dr. Offit, the secretary did offer a preview of his defense of all these cuts at HHS in an interview in late March. Let's listen to that.
What we're trying to do now is to streamline the agency, to eliminate the redundancies, and to focus the mission so that everybody who is at HHS is going to wake up every morning and say, what am I going to do today to make America healthy again? We're not cutting scientists, we're not cutting frontline workers, we're cutting administrators, and we're consolidating the agency.
I love how everything has to be a Trump-adjacent slogan, I'm not dunking on sloganeering on its own, but I love how it has to be Make America Healthy again. It can't be Make America Healthy or anything that's like a parody or like not a parody, but like a remix of the idea of Make America Healthy. It has to be a play on MAGA. I think that's silly.
The department has slashed 20,000 jobs since January. He argues frontline workers and scientists aren't being cut and that none of this impacts health care. Doctor, is that the case?
Well, he's already had his first major test. And so you know how he's going to be doing in the future. He failed his first major test, which is this measles outbreak. So the CDC currently reports that there's about 1,000 measles cases in this country. If you talk to people on the ground, that's off by a factor of at least 3. It's at least 3,000 cases. There have been 3 measles deaths in this country. That equals the total number of measles deaths over the last 25 years in this country.
You know what's going to be really scary when the outbreaks start in America? Because it's going to go from, like, 2 people infected and 0 dead to, like, millions of people infected and thousands dead, just like with COVID. Maybe more dead because it's way deadlier than COVID. Tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is all over the place. I love me some John Green, so I'm very aware of the fact that it is the most deadly infectious disease in the world and has been through all of human history, except for when the Black Plague killed the most people for like, I think it was like 5 or 4 years or something. If tuberculosis has an outbreak measles style in the US, and yes, we have modern treatment that makes it less lethal, but remember, this entire problem is centered around an entire portion of America foregoing all medical science. We're going to have a full-on genuine TB outbreak. You're going to have to worry about Farmer Cletus coughing blood on your face and you having to you're going to have the Arthur Morgan experience. Your friends are going to call you Black Lung. I'm telling you. That's what I'm most scared of, is RFK and his handling of a tuberculosis outbreak. That would be horrifying. Obviously, for us, we'd be fine. We just go to the doctor, right? Like, we just get some antibiotics and we're good, right? But, like, many of these Trump supporters and their children in particular, it's going to be rough, dude. I have friends whose parents were anti-vaxxers when they were younger, and because of that, as adults, they're only, like, mostly vaccinated because they've like caught up and gotten their vaccinations they missed, but like that's not uncommon. Anti-vax has had its like stints in popularity and it's the biggest it's been in a long time now, but like there are people who are adults now who have anti-vax parents that like have to catch up on their vaccines and stuff, you know. There's a lot of people who, you know, are still teenagers or kids and can't catch up on their vaccines and they're vulnerable and they have no choice but to be vulnerable because their crazy MAGA parents will probably beat them to death if they find out they took the Democrat mind control vaccine. I will not live in the same house as a vaccinated individual. How do I know you won't wake up in the night with orders from the Democrats to kill us in our sleep? You know, just some insane conspiracy theory. Get out of my house, goddammit.
We've had 2 children die, both healthy little girls. That's the first child death from measles in more than 20 years. He's cut back the CDC in terms of surveillance, so we really don't know exactly what's going on. He's cut back the CDC in terms of their ability to have immunization clinics in areas that are at highest risk. So his response to this outbreak has largely been not only to ignore it, but to go on national television and say things that are outright lies, like measles vaccine kills people every year. Measles vaccine causes blindness and deafness. He does everything he can to frankly discourage measles vaccination during a measles epidemic.
Okay, so it's very clear that all of the kind of headline figures in the Trump administration are horsemen of the apocalypse. I think we can all agree. RFK is Pestilence. Who is everyone else, though? Like, I guess you could say Trump might be Famine because he made all the groceries more expensive. You could also argue... Hegseth is War? That's solid. You could argue Trump is Death. What would you... Elon would be Famine? I've thought about that. You know, that is accurate because he's a capitalist, you know? No, that's actually super accurate. So Elon would be Famine. Dude, when the reveal happens, it's going to be legendary. All right? You better clip me now so that you can refer back to this when it happens and everyone finds out. Oh, yeah, Trump himself is the Antichrist, I guess. So we'd have to find someone else to fill in the role of Death, I guess. Who would be Death? I had an idea of who we could claim. If we want to be really silly about it, we could go with, who's Vince McMahon's wife? Oh, JD Vance. Oh, man, that's perfect. JD Vance is Death. Perfect.
That is killing people.
And we
that
will
tells
be.
You about his ability.
Yeah, he caused the Pope to die.
We will be listening closely for any questions
accurate.
that he gets on the measles outbreak, which, as you point out, has now reached over 1,000 cases nationwide. And this was an issue he was questioned about pretty heavily when he was going through the confirmation process. The head of the Senate committee that he'll testify before this afternoon, Republican Bill Cassidy, a medical doctor, had urged him not to spread misinformation about the virus during that confirmation hearing. They seem to have come to some understanding. But what does that tell you about how Secretary Kennedy sees his role in this administration and whether he feels he, should keep his word to these lawmakers?
Well, he's already told you what he's going to do. He's told you that he is now going to have money to look at the relationship between autism and environmental factors. He has said autism is preventable. He has said that it's an environmental factor like a medicine. You know that he's going to soon
Let's not forget as well, and this is the key quote that I've repeated many times from RFK Jr. He claimed that we are causing this, we are doing this to our children. He lumped the blame for autism in children on the American people. That suggests to me that he is going to eventually start signaling there needs to be consequences for the parents of autistic kids. Because if he thinks that we're doing this to our children, and autism is so horrible and it's such a, crime to be an autistic child, I guess, then how much of a crime must it be to be the parent of an autistic child, to be the one who supposedly caused it? This is some scary stuff. But this is old news. I just wanted to give you guys a little background before we get into what's currently making the headlines. You see, RFK Jr. just put limits on who can receive COVID vaccines. You see, just the other day, I was at the doctor. I had a routine checkup. And while I was there, I got myself a tetanus shot. Right here in my arm, actually. Right here. I'm still sore from it. I was in my backyard, and there's this, old metal T-shaped pole for hanging up laundry to dry from back in the day, because it's an older house. And I realized it was perfect for doing pull-ups on. And I started doing pull-ups. And it was great. It's perfect for pull-ups. And then I realized, oh, shit. This thing is also covered in rust. And so I quickly let go of it. But I was like, ooh, my fingers kind of have that, burn that you feel regardless of whether or not. Yeah, I should have worn gloves. I just didn't think about it. It didn't cross my mind. I was just full jock brain, oh my God, can I do pull-ups on that? That was all I was thinking. I just saw a bar, and I thought, can I do pull-ups on that? I know it won't fall on me or fall over or break. So let me see if it's the right dimensions to wrap my hands around and do a pull-up. And sure enough, it was. And that's all I cared about for 5 or 6 reps until I remembered, oh shit, tetanus. So I went ahead and got myself a tetanus shot, just in case. Went ahead and played it safe. But I also asked for a COVID vaccine, and they said they couldn't. And I was confused, but I didn't really push hard enough to get an answer. I wonder if this is related. I don't know, because my doctor's appointment was the day before yesterday, and this is as of yesterday, so I don't think it's related, but it might have just been because it was a general wellness checkup doctor's appointment, not a a specified thing where I called in about a problem to get checked out or whatever. But yeah, I mean, dude, these vaccines need to be readily available, dude. I feel if you ask for a vaccine for something, it should be well, right away, sir. Dude, it's a vaccine. Everyone needs to have them. It's all about quantity of people who are vaccinated. Why wasn't I immediately assaulted with needles the second I asked for one? Damn. It's good to be vaccinated. No, in all seriousness though, I did get my tetanus shot, and I'm happy about that. But you'd think that, if things were being run by competent people in our government, the second you mentioned, oh yeah, I could go for a booster, they'd have it in your arm before you could even finish saying the word, right? We're trying to eradicate disease here. We're trying to save lives. We're trying to encourage herd immunity. This shit matters. Anyway, I got a Ring of Fire video here about it, but RFK Jr. might have just created the next big COVID outbreak. It very well may be nightmarish.
Good news and bad news, folks. The good news is that after 4 years of clinical trials showing that it is safe, it is causing minimal, if any, side effects, a brand new COVID vaccine is available to the public. The FDA has approved it. Again, 4 years of clinical trials.
Damn, brand new?
Showing no issues that are of any concern. So the Novavax...
Listen, I will say this, because this is a common experience with the COVID vaccine, and I wonder how many people went through this and it made them slide towards the side of anti-vax. I had a very bad reaction to the COVID vaccine. I got vaccinated as soon as was reasonably possible. Like as soon as it was available for people in my age range, I immediately went to the store, mask on, got myself vaccinated, and got myself boosted, right? Once it was time. And I've been boosted 4, maybe 5 times at this point. So I'm very I do not want to get COVID again, man. I'm so scared of it, dude. I've had it twice. It's so bad. Thankfully, I've got double having had COVID immunity, which apparently is a thing. And I've been vaxxed and boosted a lot. So I'm hoping I'm as immune to COVID as your immune system could make you. Which is only so immune, because you can totally still get COVID. Oh, God, yeah. What if now we get the Croatoan virus outbreak in America? How's RFK going to deal with that? People spreading demon blood through some sort of bloodborne disease, you know? How are we going to handle that? RFK Jr. is not going to know how. We don't have a Sam and Dean to save us all. America will be fucked. Anyway, that said, though, I got the vaccine as soon as I possibly could, and it hit me hard, like a truck. I remember I went in at I want to say 10:30 a.m., and I got the shot. I went home, I ate, I streamed, and towards the end of stream, I was feeling rough, but it was sometimes I feel rough towards the end of the stream. You know, I get tired, I get a headache, whatever. I'm reading the chat going by, small little text things. It can cause me to have headaches. I didn't think much of it. And I was staying up late that night because it was my day off the next day. And so I was just staying up watching old movies that were nostalgic to me. And around halfway through the first movie, my neck started to ache like crazy. I was like, oh my God, my neck hurts so bad. I reclined my chair back, because back then I had a chair that reclined. And I reclined my chair back, and I really tried to relax, but no matter how much I relaxed, my body slowly from my neck, spreading out through my whole body, starting around my back, just slowly, it was going through my nervous system from the base of my skull. The pain spread, the aching, the soreness spread. And that was just the first night after I got the initial, I think it was the Moderna vaccine, if I remember right. The initial, not booster, just straight up first round Moderna vaccine. And it hit me hard, especially the first night. And I was up until 2 a.m. just suffering. And it was around midnight that I made the connection of, oh my God, I'm extra sore where I got the shot. Oh shit, I think the vaccine did this to me. And so I had to ride out what was basically COVID light for the next night and a half, night and day. For that whole afternoon into the evening and that whole next day, I basically dealt with COVID light. On day 3, I woke up and I was basically fine. And obviously there were no lasting harms or anything like that. I just had a particularly rough reaction to the COVID vaccine. The boosters did not hit me anywhere near as hard. I had some neck soreness, but that was it. But I can see how a ton of people might have gotten vaccinated, had a rough night afterwards, and then they started to fall for anti-vax conspiracies about how it's supposedly hurting them. Because if I didn't know better, and I didn't know that sometimes your body having an immune reaction like that, because I was having fever and body aches were my symptoms. My immune system was going all out, you know, it was working, it was doing its job, even though there wasn't really anything for it to do its job against. Well, I guess technically there was, because the bit of the virus in the vaccine. Regardless, though, that's an expected symptom of a vaccine, right? I know better than to think this is like causing me horrible permanent damage or whatever the anti-vaxxers are claiming. But if I'm just some normie that doesn't know better, I can totally imagine that no doubt common experience. And remember how many people took the COVID vaccine. A lot of people probably went through that. And I wouldn't say they all became anti-vaxxers, but when you go through something like that and then you hear anti-vaxxers or RFK making his dumb lies about how it hurts you, you might be a little more inclined to fall for it.
Vaccine is officially coming to an inoculation center near you. Now, here's the bad news. You can't get it. The reason for that is because the FDA, under the direction of Health and Human Services, which is under the direction of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has decided that they are going to restrict who actually gets to take this vaccine. 4 years of clinical trials, full FDA approval with no red flags, no black box warnings, no nothing. But Health and Human Services says, you know what? Let's just make it to where not everybody is allowed to get it. You're not allowed to take this new Novavax vaccine unless you can prove you have at least one underlying condition, medical condition diagnosed that shows that you are at high risk of complications from COVID-19.
So there is, back when the COVID vaccines were being like rush produced in order to get as many out there as possible and there were limited numbers, it made sense to sort of slowly increase the range of people who could go get it. Starting with like the oldest and those who have pre-existing conditions, it made sense. Like these are the people who, if they get COVID, they're the ones most likely to fucking die, you know? Like you want those people getting vaccinated first when there's only so many vaccines. They need the immunity the most, right? Like that whatever help they can get, they need. But then we're now 5 years later, pretty much, and COVID is still ravaging the world. And meanwhile, we've got more vaccines than ever, and RFK is trying to put in the same policies from back when there were, you know, fractions of supply for the desired demand, right? Like, we're basically just nonsensically scaling back vaccinations for no reason. What's Operation Warp Speed? Yeah, who remembers that when Trump was the guy, like, headlining the vaccine development with his Operation Warp Speed thing? But because the vaccine ended up being developed primarily under Biden, the Republicans had to go completely against something that Trump pushed for, and now MAGA is fully anti-vax. Had Trump presided over the release of that vaccine, I guarantee you MAGA would be so pro-vaccine right now. It's all whatever benefits Trump. It just so happens that Trump is so stupid and evil, they have to go anti-vax or flat earth or just blatantly anti-science in order to defend him.
Now, as many of us saw during the height of the pandemic, if you have lungs, you're at high risk. Many of us likely know somebody, I know several of them, by the way, no underlying medical conditions, no diagnosed problems, no lung conditions throughout their entire lives, yet they became severely ill. I had a family member who ended up on a ventilator. We basically were going to go up and say our goodbyes because we thought it got to that point, but she did eventually overcome it. But she had no underlying medical conditions. So, and she wasn't over the age of 65. But according to Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Health and Human Services, nope, that kind of person is not allowed to get this FDA-approved vaccine that went through 4 years of clinical trials and didn't show any problems. If you are a caregiver...
Who remembers when they were just making up stories every other week about how insert person, like, died in a boat crash? And they would, like... Okay, so there was this trend where news stories would come out where, like, a person's cause of death won't have been determined yet. Most commonly, it's like aneurysm, stroke, heart attack, right? There are a lot of ways where people just kind of drop dead, you know? Like, they had a pre-existing condition, No one knew. They might not have even known. And it gets them right when they least expect it, right? They just drop fucking dead. It's very sad, but it's a thing that happens, right? This is always happening, right? But it just so happens that a bunch of these stories hit headlines where it's like, guy dies suddenly while piloting his speedboat and crashes into a bridge in Florida, right? That was one of the stories that really stuck with me because all of the comments were, oh yeah, I'm sure. I think the vaccine had something to do with this. All the comments. And it was being pushed that way. Like every time a story would, not knowing what the cause of death of someone was, if they had died in a sudden manner, they would use the term died suddenly. And this phrase became sort of a sarcastic sort of mantra for the anti-vax movement for like a year back in, I want to say 2021, where they would say, another person died suddenly, claiming that it had something to do with the vaccine or that the vaccine killed them. They've dropped this story since. Like, they haven't pushed this idea broadly as much as they did back then for years, but there was a time where they were putting a lot of effort into pushing nonstop claims that every day countless people were being killed by the vaccine. Like, this whole banning the vaccine thing has always been part of their rhetoric since after Biden took office. Before that, Trump was the one trying to bring it about. You know, he tried to make the vaccine a thing. Like, criticism due to Trump and all that, he really did want to be the one who solved COVID. It would have made him look good. He tried his, I wouldn't say his best. Actually, no. I'd say Trump tried his best. But his best, caused millions of Americans to die.
For elderly people or people with compromised immune systems or, risk factors for COVID, you can't get the vaccine because you don't personally have an underlying condition that could make it bad for you to get COVID. Again, if you have lungs, COVID can be devastating. We are only now just scratching the surface of what was called long COVID and the scarring and problems that it causes in otherwise healthy people to their lungs and breathing, folks. But this is what happens when you put a science skeptic in charge of our nation's health. A fully functioning, totally normal vaccine that he's like, nah, you know what? Let's just say these people can't get it. Who the fuck does that benefit? Why even have an FDA at this point at all? Why even have prescription drugs? Why even have vaccines, right? If you're going to restrict who is allowed to even have these things, then nothing matters anymore. Science doesn't matter. Medicine doesn't matter.
Yep, exactly.
And this is why you have to...
Well, that's the plan. Science doesn't matter. Medicine doesn't matter. People's lives and rights don't matter. That is the entire worldview of the MAGA movement. Not the MAGA movement of voters necessarily. A lot of them are just, sadly, people who fell for it, But for the politicians involved, it's what it's all about. It's all about denying science, taking people's rights away, disobeying the law. That's the whole game.
Put intelligent people in positions of power instead of dipshits like this. Because this is the level of stupidity we're dealing with. Now, I will be clear. I don't know, because it is not mentioned, if this directly came from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or if it's just the department's new policies. But as the guy who runs the department, he is where the buck stops. So his department is doing this. And if he doesn't want them to do this, then he needs to come out and say, oh, hell no. Anybody who wants the vaccine, they can go get it. It's approved. Why not? But no, this is what we get. This is what we get when we put science deniers in charge of science. The most ass-backwards policies that we couldn't have dreamt of in our wildest dreams.
And in regards to COVID, I want to show you guys something. A little bit of an update on a story that I have been kind of covering for a while now. I watch a lot of science education content on YouTube, and one of the best channels in regards to this content is a channel called Physics Girl. And about 4 years ago, I want to say, shortly after her wedding, she caught COVID. She recovered from it, and things looked positive, but less than a week later, there was a massive backslide to the point where she basically lost her entire quality of life. Like basically lost her entire quality of life. It was bad. She has spent the last 3 years essentially bedbound, and only recently has she gotten to the point where she can sit up, and at one point stood for the first time in 4 years. She is a young, healthy, no conditions prior person, very successful, very happy. Like her whole life was ahead of her, and like 5 years of her life got stolen away. Her health has improved significantly as of late, but there were years there of... I also dealt with long COVID, though nowhere near to the same degree, but something I've noticed as a consistent trend in people with long COVID is regardless of symptom severity, if it gets better, and it does often seem to get better, it's always at the same rate, right? Like whether you're bedbound and incapable of movement, or like you're just dealing with some minor like chest pain or whatever, the recovery speed seems equal. Where like you'll spend years of slow, grinding, barely noticeable month by month recovery where it's like, I guess I feel better than I did 4 months ago, for like 2 or 3 years after you get long COVID, right? And then over the course of like a year, you'll see a significant improvement. And then over the course of just a couple months, you'll see a year's worth of improvement from the previous year. It's like an almost exponential improvement in health recovery, but the beginning is so slow. And I've noticed a very similar trend here with Physics Girl's recovery, but I can't tell you guys how happy I am to see her up and around again. I've covered this as it's happened, but it's been years it's been going for, so just a little background for those that don't know. Let's see a little bit of this update so you can get an idea of just how devastating COVID is for a young, healthy person.
I want people to know about this disease. I want them to know how bad it can get.
No, it's been 3 years. My bad.
YouTuber Diana Cowan is dealing with long COVID. She's had it for 9 months and it's not getting any better.
Every month she would lose a little bit of capability.
This is a really good decision.
Diana will often call me in there crying, says, I wanted to have a life with you, I wanted to have a family with you, I wanted to have kids. It's the thing I want most in the world, and I'm not going to be able to do that. And I don't know if we're going to be able to.
Her husband's been a great caretaker for her.
That has triggered something called MECFS. Diana's health has spiraled down to the point where she can barely move. In the past week, she has been to the ER twice.
MECFS is distinct from long COVID because MECFS has a particular symptom called post-exertional malaise. If you try to do something, if you exert yourself, you get really sick and you pay a huge cost for doing that.
Yeah, I had that for a little while after I got COVID, and it was very shitty. Especially like, because I do actually enjoy living a very active lifestyle, and there'd be days where like getting up to get something out of the fridge would cause like pulsating, very similar to what I described before, just pulsating pain going all the way down my back from like the base of my skull. Very unpleasant, very unpleasant. Nowhere near as bad as what she went through though. Just, God, like the fact that it can do this to you, you know? Like this is not just a bad flu or a bad cold. Like it for many people, it was years of life-altering damage. Even for me, with how relatively minor my long COVID was, I'd argue it was life-altering.
Not everyone that has long COVID.
It made me lose like 20 pounds. I was so, like, my stomach got so weak and my appetite got fucked.
Fatigue, POTS, and other stuff.
That's too much to remember and explain right now.
Okay.
I just feel like a second ago we were laughing hard on the couch, planning to make a video, and now Physics Girl is going to be shut down for years with how we're talking about it.
So, I don't know if we start with how long it's
Veritasium.
It's been over 2 years of being sick, essentially approaching 2 years of like bedbound. Her quality of life is unimaginably low right now still. She can't get out of bed, she can't clean herself, she can't take a shower.
I think the thing that's shocking to me as well is like this lack of ability to have anything really to occupy your mind, right? Like it's not like she can't really read or audiobooks or movies or I don't know from what I can see.
So that's improved. I think there's a little bit of good news here. I mean,
that's the thing. You'd think like, well, at least she can lay in bed and watch TV or play video games all day, right? Okay. Were you guys ever, like, sick when you were younger? Like, you'd be like, oh, God, I'm sick. I can't go to school today. And you're, like, actually sick. Like, you can't go to school. You're like, but obviously, I can lay in bed and still play video games or watch TV. You know, I'm not sick enough to... I'm not so sick I can't lay down and play a video game, right? Like, and then your mom would be like, hey, if you're sick, if you're well enough to play video games, you're well enough to go to school. And it's like, what? No? No, I'm laying in a bed, holding a controller. My fingers are all that are moving. What do you mean? Like, no. But, I'm not gonna lie. When I had COVID, and even when I had long COVID, I know what that mindset is like. I was too sick to play video games. Like, I would sit down on the couch when I'd get, like, a flare-up of long COVID fatigue, and I'd lay back, and I'd try to, like, boot up my PlayStation, and, like, I'd play a game for about 2 minutes, then, like, the headaches and nausea would hit, and I just immediately, without a word or a second thought, just shut the game off, like, throw on, like, some, like, old nostalgic YouTube video, turn the volume down to 3 clicks, and just go to sleep. 'Cause that's all you could do. Like, put a blanket over me, and just go to sleep. Literally too sick to play video games or watch TV. That is the level of sick COVID makes you.
We just finished our 3rd movie in the past 2 months. So this is like huge. She couldn't watch a movie for over a year and a half.
That's progress.
Started in 5-minute increments and now up to 15-minute increments. We can like talk a bit, but like she can't have like an animated discussion. She can't get into something that's like, you know, emotionally deep or interesting. But the problem for Diana is that she's had such severe MCAS, this kind of hyper-inflammatory but immune response to like anything entering her body.
I mean, I think that's something that kind of became clear to me, that this is not just like one disease or one thing that's going on. It's layered symptoms or layered diseases, and an attempt to treat one ends up triggering another.
She was feeling really...
It's a syndrome, is what I think it is. Like, long COVID is a syndrome. From my, like, I'm not a medical expert or anything like that, but my understanding is when there is a collection of symptoms that are severe enough and are bundled together very commonly, but you don't know the cause of it, it's a syndrome. Like a good example of this is something that a friend of mine recently dealt with, which is Bell's palsy syndrome, where bro just woke up one morning and half his face was wilted. And he was like, am I having a stroke? It's the wrong side of my face for it, but still, and found out it was Bell's palsy. And there's no one knows what causes it. There's no known working treatment for it. You just kind of wait, and it got better. It took years, but it got better. Syndromes are like that too, where it's like they'll get better, but over the course of years and for no reason, with no realistic like treatment causing things to get better. There are weird things with the human body like that, and we have a special title for when we see symptoms and they always occur the same way, but we don't know what causes it. And that is what long COVID is. It's a syndrome. We technically know what causes it. It's like COVID's damage to the body, but like the amount of symptoms it causes and the ways in which it causes them are still being explored. And we don't know what exactly is responsible through and through. And I can say that like it's probably going to take immense amounts of physical therapy to improve her health all the way back to like more or less what she was before she got sick. I'll say that's helped with me, is like I've noticed the most recovery from my symptoms since I started lifting, but she's far from being able to lift, though I do wonder if like a lot of her recovery is going to have to come about through like very painful physical therapy, because like working out or doing any type of exercise or like physical activity while you're like this sucks, but it might be required for her full recovery. Who knows?
Really good. She tried to do a little bit of stuff for her legs. I'm like talking very small.
She can finally stand for a minute.
Yeah, just
that's a big improvement.
She was just putting a little bit of pressure, like with her foot, like against the ground, you know, and did that like on with each foot for, you know, grand total of 30 seconds.
She actually control her leg muscles.
Severe crash after that for like a week.
Yeah, I can't imagine. She expressed to me that that was sort of her biggest fear, was that she's just never gonna get better.
That's her biggest fear, yeah.
She's had to go to the hospital a lot for IVs because she no doubt can't keep things down.
Visiting Diana.
She's getting better though.
Diana. Come say hi.
Oh, I can show you what I've been up to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm working on lots and lots of embroidery projects. This is my latest one.
I'm happy to see her looking this much better.
This is what a finished product
This is such a massive improvement. I don't even have to tell you. You saw.
Things have been changing. You were able to get up and walk. You were able to eat chocolate. You were doing.
But also, I've watched a serious TV show. I watched Severance.
You know what's like really, and I don't want to be rude when I say this, but I think it has to be said. She is somewhat noticeably older now, and granted, probably, you know, she's not all done up because she's been sick, but she looks noticeably older now than when she first got sick. I know it's only been 3 or 4 years, about 4 years now, but that's a while, you know? Like, you age a bit within 4 years. Like, I noticeably age a bit over 4 years. This is like a chunk of life that was stolen from her. And when I see stories like this, and when I think about what I went through with long COVID and what millions, tens of millions of Americans maybe, or just people globally, have gone through with long COVID, I think about the fact that Trump and his cronies mismanaged this shit so badly that countless Americans have had to go through this and have had their quality of life destroyed. Even if things get better eventually, the amount that's been taken away from people is something you can never get back. Yeah, you see, she's better now. She has the natural immunity. Good, according to RFK. Good one, Brian Rimlinger. But yeah, listen, I am happy to see she's getting better, but look at that horror story of years of losing your quality of life. This is the fear I have of another big COVID outbreak. I don't want it to happen to me, and I don't want it to happen to a single other person. Regardless, though, if you guys enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining, enjoyable, or educational in any way whatsoever, then please consider leaving a like. Every thumbs up goes a long way to boost the channel and the algorithm, whether you're watching now or when this goes up as a YouTube video in the future. Every time you click that thumbs up button, YouTube is forced to push my stuff in the algorithm to more people, so it really does help a lot. If you want to go the extra mile too and double up on the support, you can also drop a comment as well. If you don't know what to say, you can just comment, "Get vaccinated, RFK." You know, just a little message at RFK you can signal out there, but it'll also help in the algorithm. It means so much. And if you want to see more from me in the future, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future. And of course, if you want to see more from me on other platforms and see what I'm up to in like off YouTube and whatnot, you can follow my social medias linked down below. Especially, I recommend you join my fan Discord, as it's the main hub of my fan base and community. And on top of that, I host gaming events, call-in streams, watch parties, and movie nights there every week on Fridays. And I announce all my new uploads and streams there, so if YouTube bugs out and doesn't tell you, at least my Discord will, whenever I go live and upload, that is. And you can also support me financially if you want to, and you want to support the channel, and help me keep the lights on and the roof above my head here at the Xander Hall Studio over on my website by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub to someone else, or you can support me financially through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you so much for watching, as always, and have a good one.